Hello, crypto legends. Hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. Today, we'll be discussing the price of Bitcoin. There are many scenarios, so make sure to stay tuned till the very end because some people are getting bullish because September historically has been a very bearish month. So now it's going to be the opposite. So they've got lots of liquidity to the upside. And other people say it's just going to be bearish. We're actually going to go down to 100K and even below $100,000. Now, I just wanted to explain to you today that there is higher probability to hit all-time high at some point in the next coming weeks. I do not expect this eventually to happen in the next coming days. We're likely going to see a larger corrective range, very chilled, with pumps of a few $1,000s, with dumps of a few $1,000s, and taking out the low of 107.5K, which is the recent lows of the last few days. Very, very likely, to happen. So ultimately, short term, we do see high probability in taking out the low. Higher time frame, yes, another new all-time high is very, very likely, and we'll be discussing the local levels of support and resistance and how the waves could develop so we can find out where the highest probability scenarios could lie, okay? So make sure to stay tuned. Now let's dive in right away. I just want to let you know, I was in a long position. This was basically talked about in the VIP channel. I did scratch a few of the profits just because I didn't like this local price action throughout yesterday. Very choppy, taking a lot of time for the major move up. So it's looking a bit corrective. There are many scenarios that are pointing out that this movement to the upside is looking corrective. So I scratched a little bit of profits from the Bitcoin trade position, okay? If you are interested in joining the VIP, it is super simple. Join the Telegram, the first link down below in the description. And if you sign up to either Bluffin or Weeks, okay, even BTCC, any of these three exchanges, you create a minimum deposit of $500. You got insane perks here, guys. On Bluffin, you get a 10% cash back, okay, on your deposit to increase your capital. Weeks has an airdrop position, okay. All of these different perks you can get by signing up down below. And with the minimum deposit, you're joining the VIP, which I'm sharing my higher time frame major trading setups. These ones are Bitcoin and Ethereum. Ethereum being the best performing one from that all-time high just less than 2 weeks ago, okay? Very, very nice indeed. Very good profits. Still going to maintain 30% open here just to see if we do claim $4,000, okay, which I think is a very much a possibility. Understanding that Bitcoin has a very high chance that it's actually going to dip down below 107.5K, okay, which will be explained. So overall, let's start off here with the very simple scenarios, right? Levels of support. We got the anchored VWAP from the April low of the rally, right? Also with the point of control of this range between May and July, good confluence, good support. Nice little bounce of a few $1,000s in the last few days. This was a zone where it was looking very interesting locally to look for long positions. That's where I executed my long just a few days ago. So what we do have to the upside is a lot of resistance eventually, right? We do have the value area low of this trading zone that we do have in between, okay, July, right, and August. And we also have the anchored VWAP from all-time high. Anchored VWAP, we cannot, not pay attention, right, to the anchored VWAP from major pivot highs and pivot lows. As you can see, good support here from the low of April, and eventually anchored VWAP from all-time high is going to be, a major zone where we could, be getting some reactions. However, I am not interested in taking the first short position once we do get up there, if we do get up there, okay? And I'll be explaining that throughout the lower time frames and how we want to look for local setups and what I am looking for my bigger positions, okay? So overall, taking a look at the higher time frame, what we are discussing here is basically that we have moved up from April in a 5-wave structure. This is what we need to understand to try and identify where we at, okay? This is how I know that it's unlikely that we have formed a low here and we're going to head up to all-time high in the next 1 to 2 weeks, because we have finished a multi-monthly uptrend in a 5-wave structure, and this to be the end of the correction is very shallow in time and it's very complex. We could form a very, very sideways complex or even a very sharp WXY double zigzag, and it's still very shallow in timing. And even with the local price action, which we will discuss throughout this episode, it is looking more corrective, okay? There is a way of fitting a contracting diagonal that can lead to a bullish, movement up in the lower time frames. However, the bearish scenarios locally do look more interesting, okay? So overall, what we're looking at here is a complex sideways or even sharp corrective structure. When there's overlap here and the pivots, you might think this is the low, this is the low. Well, eventually this was the low, right? When you have a major rally for many months, you can, correct for many weeks till you actually get the next rally. Same as what happened here throughout 2024, right? You have this correction. Is this the low? Are we going to take out the high? Well, eventually not. We take out the low again. Well, is this the low right over here? Well, it wasn't. We took out the low again, right? Very sideways and very complex, lots of overlap, ending up, taking out the all-time high, because eventually this was a corrective structure with all of this overlap, right? We understood that taking out all-time high again was very likely going to happen at some point in the next coming weeks, give or take a few months here. This was a multi-monthly correction. So we are leaning with all of this overlap that we do have and this downtrend, that the probabilities do look like that we're going to hit all-time high. There is a bearish one, which is a multiple 1-2. I have to say, it's still possible, but the longer we take throughout the next coming days to still continue ranging here or even going higher, the multiple 1-2 setup is very low probability, just because when we consider the bearish case, which is the multiple 1-2, right? In this case, we're not even considering the wave 2 here. So 2 1-2s, that would be very long. Your second 1 and 2, right? Your wave 2 here from your first 1 and 2 is, you can see the timing. If this were to be your second 1 and 2, timing here, if we consider this a flat, is extending. And in your second, third 1 and 2s, you want them to be shorter than your previous ones, which is not the case here, right? Now, ultimately, the other scenario would be that triple 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, and 1 and 2. It's still possible. It is still possible, unless you take out this high at 113.5, that will be insanely decreasing the probabilities that there's a major bearish case. But as long as we're below 113.5, this scenario is still possible, okay? So the worst scenario is actually breaking down in the coming days, right? And really taking a massive hit on Bitcoin, breaking down with high volume and big price action. Unfortunately, this scenario is still possible. Even the probabilities are low based on the timing, okay? So just to take it into consideration, I am in a long, I'm very defensive. If we do get the breakdown, I will be happy, because it would eventually, take Ethereum to lower levels from that short position that I entered on Ethereum at all-time high. I would be happy because it is a slightly bigger position. So I would be more than happy that if we were to get that breakdown here for the Ethereum short. However, probabilities are decreasing based on timing, okay? So what are the other scenarios that we are looking at, right? We do understand it's an ascending contracting diagonal, be it leading or ending. Doesn't really matter at this point to really analyze the local price action. What we are understanding is that this, if it is going to be a correction, being the low here and shooting off, even though there is a valid count, which is not my favorite, which would be the end of a WXY structure here, there is a way of squeezing in that zigzag down, your flat in your wave X, and this ABC zigzag down. There is a way of squeezing a valid finished WXY, but I do not like it based on the timing. If you form a WXY, well, that's the end of a correction. You cannot have a ABC or a WXY if you have a WXY here in this area. So yeah, this would be the end if this were to be the finish count. However, based on timing, I am not giving it the highest probability, right? This seems like that needs to be a larger corrective structure here, regardless being sideways, right? Or even sharp and getting down to the low 100K levels. It's my preferred scenario based on the different scenarios that I'm going to explain right away. So let's focus here on the one of my interesting scenarios that I do like from here, okay, which is this one can be a little bit tricky. as explained, it's not an easy downtrend that we're having right now to take big positions, right? I'm happy to, make profits of $100,000, but I'm getting into low positions, few $1,000 profit, right? I'm still not liking here. I am looking for a bigger position, which is not making it very clear at the moment. And clear price action will come. It's just a matter of being patient. Your key indicator basically in trading, one of them is good risk management, and one of them is being patient till you have clarity, right? And if you don't have clarity, make sure to position yourself with low capital, right? Or just wait for a few days to get a very clear scenario. Now, the clearest scenario that I had was a few days ago with this price action. We talked about the double bottom here on YouTube, and we got the rally and a back test here of the previous week low and previous week close, sorry, and and a higher low could be very much possible here, just for just to position yourself, right? Which was just a few days ago. That's the main long position that I had here on Bitcoin. So what are the scenarios here? Well, one of them is this one. You have a zigzag move to the downside and your ABC flat. There is a valid count here for a contracting diagonal, even though the price action of your wave 3, when we zoom out in here throughout the lower time frame from the low that we had a few days ago here at 117.2k, well, we do have lots of overlap, okay? And if we are going to count a contracting diagonal, it would have to look like this. However, you do have your correction of your wave 3 that has moved down below the trend line of your wave 2 and 4 of the contracting diagonal, which is not an invalidation. It just doesn't make it sexy, right? It just decreases the probability that you're looking at this. However, if this were to be a 3-wave 3-3-3, right, contracting diagonal, you need to find a 3-wave in here, right? A 3-wave here is fine. You've got a 3-wave here. A WXY sideways corrective move here also in a 3-wave structure. Your wave 1, your wave 2 is fine for a zigzag right there. Wave 1 does look quite impulsive, so that you do have some issues here to find a 3-3-3 right inside of this contracting diagonal. But I would say it's a valid count, even though your correction of the wave 3 does get below, all right, of your wave 2 and 4 trend line. It's not an invalidation. It just decreases the probabilities ever so slightly for this to be the case. But taking this into consideration, well, when we do zoom out, what you would have potentially as inside of a C wave, you want a 5-wave structure inside of a flat or a zigzag, right? But considering this being a flat, a running flat in this case, there is the chance, okay? You got a zigzag down, the flat structure, running flat here, finishing the movement up, and then you break down throughout the next couple of weeks, right? In another sharp zigzag that could take you to the very low 100k levels. This is something that is without a doubt a scenario, okay? Taking into consideration the higher time frame picture, well, yeah, you can have a flat, running flat here, which means you are looking for lower prices. Now, if you do take into consideration as well the some other scenarios, I mean, for the bearish case, you can fit inside of this zone a double zigzag. Now, we talk about this a lot, right? You formed 7 waves here, looks better, right? Where you have a zigzag move to the upside, your corrective structure, and another zigzag to the upside. It's a bit 7-wavy move when you can fit a WXY double zigzag here, which is a corrective structure, which ultimately is looking to take out this low right over here. Obviously the most bearish one would be this one. 1 2 1 2 1 2. You start rolling down here throughout the next coming days with some pretty aggressive moves to the downside. As you can see, based on this scenario, right, which is the multiple 1 2, the most bearish one, or the WXY, okay, which is this one right over here, finishing your C flat, okay, in a running flat with that contracting diagonal, then eventually you're still looking for those lows to be taken. High probability, right? High probability that these lows are likely going to be taken, regardless of this being a double zigzag or an ascending contracting diagonal based on this case. Now, the bullish case scenario, which I do not like very much, there is a way of finding a ABC movement down here where you do have a 5 wave and an A wave, your flat and the B wave, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, contracting diagonal for your C wave, which ultimately means that, yes, you have the potential in forming a larger corrective structure in a WXY here. So if you form a contracting diagonal to the upside, it can be a leading one, right? It can be a leading contracting diagonal, which, yeah, eventually, you could be looking for this as a correction and then another push to the upside here. So it's not been easy, guys. Let's be honest. It's not being easy. And as we do have the value area low and the anchored VWAP from all-time high, okay, and the value area low of this trading zone, well, I would not be interested in an instant short position, just realizing that, we can push higher depending on what price action we do here, which eventually, if I do get into any position based on the local price action and I see some signs of weakness, then eventually I will let the VIP or the pro community know on Telegram if I am executing a trade. But on the first touch, I'm really not that interested. If we do correct from here and we push through, I'm just very much aware of this scenario, right, where we do have a wave or a 1 wave in a 5 wave structure, you correct down, this push to the upside could really extend to 115, 116, right, give or take. It can really push and see some pretty interesting momentum locally. So entering into the first move up in a short, as this could extend quite a bit, is not my option here. Okay, so overall, not interested in a quick short position at the anchored VWAP and the value area low sitting around about the $114,000 range. Okay, so it's not going to be easy. Another scenario that can develop to try and identify a good shorting trade is basically this scenario right over here, where your wave ABC flat, your C wave, could develop still here. And as this is your A wave, this is your B wave. Could this be your wave 1? I mean, leading diagonals are low probability. Ending diagonals are more likely than a leading diagonal. So a leading diagonal eventually would be, this is your wave 1. Your wave 2 is getting developed. You get your wave 3 and then 4 and 5. And yes, this could still be part of the flat, where you basically, an extensive flat is the most common target zone, getting to the 1.618, even the 2 to 1. I mean, yeah, there would be a major target, but basically you want to see a wave 4, your correction here after your wave 3, right? Preferably not overlapping this pivot, and then looking for the push up. And that could be an interesting double top here locally. But you need the correction here to finish a big movement, right? Getting to 115K, potentially, maybe almost scratching 116K, form your consolidation, and then the local double top would be your 5th wave, and then we're looking for a major pullback down. This local double top, to try and identify your 5th wave here, would be an interesting scenario, because this could still be the flat, and eventually you're looking for either, a double zigzag down throughout the next 1 to 2 weeks, and it could push us down, guys. This would be a very interesting short position to enter if we do develop this price action. So literally, we need a big squeeze up with high volume to get above $114,000, consolidate, and then create one more high, okay, and form that local double top, considering this scenario. Zigzag down the extensive flat here in your wave X, and what we're looking at here is another move down potentially to take out this low. Because, yeah, a sideways corrective structure, if you do extend here, right, very, very much, right, and take out, okay, the 7 Fibonacci, okay, the 70% from this pivot high to the pivot low, which I don't think is going to reach, okay, that's all the way up here above the golden pocket. I don't think we will reach it. Then eventually, if you were to extend here, then a sideways corrective structure where you could be forming a triangle in this range for many weeks is an option. Instead of this being a sharp double zigzag, then what we're looking at here is a sideways WXY, but you need a long time here for this to develop, right? It's going to take at least 1 to 2 weeks to develop this triangle structure, or an internal flat in your Y wave, right, where you do get a correction, you take out the highs and then take out the lows again, right? And then if we do develop either a triangle or a flat, if we do extend to $118,000, $119,000, we can consider this sideways corrective structure, but we'll get that information, right, once we get up there. Opportunities are everywhere, guys. We just need the patterns to finish, right? We need the waves to finish to then identify, okay, this looks good, right, to get into either a long or a short position. So there's two scenarios. This is your wave one, you're forming your wave two, then 3, 4, and 5, extending to 115 or 116K, very possible right there. Or even this being the end, okay, of that flat, as you do have a potential contracting diagonal. Even though your wave 3 overlaps your trend line of your wave 4, I mean, it does decrease the probability ever so slightly. It's not very common, but it's a valid count, okay? So that would be interesting. Eventually, what we would be looking at here is a move down, a bounce, and then another move down, okay? Looking for that zigzag throughout the next 1 to 2 weeks, okay? Which could take us down to the low 100K levels. That's the moment that we would be looking for opportunities. If you do get a zigzag down here and you do get a major bounce overlapping this pivot low and this pivot high, lower high, preferably even, this is the zone where you move up in an impulse, you start correcting. That is your zone of opportunity here, right? To look for the rally to the end of October to literally take out all-time high. This is how the price needs to develop to basically, if we form a zigzag down in the next few days, move down, bounce, corrective, another move down, it gets to the low 100K levels. Oh my goodness, bear market, this is it. If we do get a reaction bounce after forming a 2-wave, 3-wave structure, sorry, we overlap that pivot, moves in an impulse, we start correcting here in this zone, opportunity zone, okay? This is the golden ticket to get into that swing long position. So as you can see, there's too many scenarios here, guys. It is what it is. Sometimes you just need to be patient for clarity. And for the moment, there's just too many different possibilities here. The multiple 1-2 is still very much possible. This movement to the upside, either contracting diagonal, which is not my favorite, okay? It's not looking too shabby here. And a double zigzag does actually look pretty good, right? We do have very, very similar price action here where we formed a zigzag correction and another zigzag, right? You can see there's 7 waves here. This ended up taking out the low, and there is 7 waves here also. So there is a very valid count here for a double zigzag, which eventually, has the risk of taking out the low, which we want to be very, very cautious with the longs. That contracting diagonal, though, is very interesting. There is a valid one. There is actually a valid one, even though part of your wave 3 overlapped here, the trend line. But there is a valid one. Most bearish case, ABC flat, you move down already in a zigzag, or worst case scenario, you're forming your wave 3 throughout the next coming days. That's eventually not going to be good, because we would be looking for a significant breakdown, guys, of almost $10,000 potentially, on that wave 3. And the bullish case scenario is literally, wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5. That is possible. You got your flat eventually. This is a zone that's going to be looking interesting for that short position, right? You're looking for that wave 5 to finish. It's going to be very, very interesting. I would be very interested in really looking how the price is developing here, because this could be an epic short with the potential of breaking down below the lows here. So, I mean, it would be over a $10,000 move, and that's the kind of swing trades that I'm looking for here. So all about being patient, guys. Price is going to give us information, and price is going to tell us where we at and what pattern is likely the one that is actually forming to then pull the trigger and get into another epic trade position, guys. And I am documenting and sharing my positions here on the Telegram VIP. So if you're interested in that, you have the first link down below, guys. Just sign up with one of the exchanges down below, Bluffin, Weeks, minimum deposit. Join the Telegram where I am sharing my trade executions, okay? Not much more has to be said in this episode. We do have some levels to pay attention, naked pointed controls, okay? We do have one right over here, which we just barely missed. It can be looking interesting. If we do get a bounce here, we take out the lows and we recover above it. It can be a reclaim and we can actually recover from that zone. But I'm not really too interested locally here, just aware of the movement down based on this being corrective, or actually forming a higher low and moving up, because we could form that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, right? And, just not really interested. There's too many scenarios here. It can be bearish or bullish. I'm more interested in looking for shorts here on the 4 and 5. Boom. Then we look for the movement down, or actually moving down here already quite aggressively, and then paying attention to what happens in this area. Okay, there is a daily level down over here somewhere, which is basically where we have this low over here. It can be an interesting reaction at 105.6k. Okay, we could get a reaction at that daily, even sweeping up this low for a swing failure pattern. Okay, it's very much a possibility locally, but be careful based on, I would take them as day trades, because what you do have, as explained here, is this scenario, right, where you formed the flat either here, or you do extend it all the way up here, as mentioned, right, where you have 1, 2, 3, or not that big, but 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right, and then you actually get the breakdown. I would be cautious, regardless if you move down from here or from higher. If you move down to this zone, yes, you can react, form a swing failure pattern at this daily. I would take it as a day trade. Okay, be defensive. It's a good entry, good stop loss, reaction bounce. Play defensive, guys. Take some profits, because the possibility of forming another zigzag down here is very, very likely on that WXY. Okay, it all depends on your trading style. There are some internal levels that are great for scalping and day trading. I am looking for the bigger swings. Okay, the bigger swings, either the bigger swing up here. If we do get down to the low 100k levels, I would be paying attention for an epic swing long position to all-time high, depending on how we move, okay? Or looking for a short. We move up, boom, 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 4 and 5, okay? After this momentum, then I will be looking for a short with the potential of taking out 107, okay? So interest zone for shorts, depending on how we move. Interest area for longs. These are swing positions. I'm looking for moves of over $10,000. This is my level of interest for a short, depending if we do get 4 5s. And this is my interest zone for longs. If we do get that zigzag to the downside, we overlap the pivot low, the retracements are the ones that I'm going to be looking for long positions. Okay, so this is how I'm trying to navigate here the market in a nutshell, with a bit of Picasso drawing, guys. Thank you very much for joining today. And if you're interested in more updates, join the Legends Pro community down below, which is the first link, okay, to join the Telegram. You can get more information for the Pro or the VIP. Sign up to the exchanges down below, guys. You got massive perks, bluffing, 10% cashback, VIP 1 or 2, depending on what you deposit, which decreases your fees, okay? Second link or third, fourth link for BTCC or weeks, guys. Thank you very much for joining, and I'll see you in the next one.